Welcome to another edition of the Stay True podcast, being brought to you by T.R.U.E Coaching, where triumph requires unlimited effort. I am your host and facilitator and sometimes concierge, Lamont. But today we have Mr. Anthony Jones. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, host extraordinaire. It's good to be with you.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. Mr. Jones, but I like to call you because you're so sophisticated. If you would, can you give the people a little bit about yourself? We're going to dive on in, sir.
Well, today I have the privilege of serving as Associate Provost and Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management at the Howard University on the Hill in Washington, D.C. And that gives me opportunity to help young people through admissions, financial aid, student accounts, records, enrollment systems, enrollment services, just about anything outside the classroom is what I'm responsible for. So I'm privileged to have an awesome team to work with. We've got double-digit performance this year, 30,000 plus applications. We are going to have about 2,900 young people from across the world that can possibly join us in the fall. I say possibly because not everybody's going to show up. Some of them dealing with that mother pandemic, so they might skip us. But we're excited about that, and it's a privilege to do that work. And again, excited to be here today.
That's awesome. So, Mr. Jones, we had an opportunity to talk a few times, and what stuck out to me before was your days of Fisk, right? Talk to me about Fisk a little bit, man. I was like, okay, that's sticking with me, man. Go ahead, talk to me.
It's interesting, the relationship that I've had with Fisk University. It came on my radar in a most unusual way. I was coming out of high school as a young person that had to work for every single grade that I had. I mean, you're talking to someone right now who, Brother Lamont, was diagnosed, as they say, in the third grade as learning deficient and placed in the special ed programs. Now, I have nothing against special education. Those young people that are in the resource programs in schools across the country, my hat is off to them. Many of them are working hard. In my case, because that was what the predicament was, I began to live up to, or should I say live down to, the expectations. I went from a mild-mannered young person who got along with other students to acting a nut on the playground, fights and throwing dirt in people's faces and all of what society said that a special education student was to be at that time. It was when I hit the classroom of a woman who had taught both my parents that this woman said to me, Jones, that's not going to work. And through her unconditional love, man, that's why listen, all in for teachers, public school teachers, private school teachers, these people make a difference. That turned my life around. But what it meant now was that I was going to have to work from 4th grade to 12th grade to work for every single grade that I had. Well, senior year came around, hadn't had a lot of guidance on where to go to college. My parents were not college educated. They were both entrepreneurs, did well for themselves, but I was a first gen man in every sense of the word. And there was a gentleman who said to me, you, sir, look like a Morehouse man, and you should go to Morehouse. Well, that's all I needed to hear. So I started to apply. But then I found out that there was a woman at my church who had also attended Fisk University. And I decided that I was going to talk to her about this school. And when I asked her about that school, when it came out of my mouth, her face lit up like a light bulb. I said, wow, this must be a special place. I was so fixated about going to Morehouse. I applied to Morehouse and Fisk. And I got accepted at Fisk, but I hadn't yet heard from the house. So I was holding out. Now, there's something about when God is ordering a man's footsteps. My mother comes into the room one day. She says to me, look, son, she says, my mother's a wise woman when she wants to be. She said, you know what? A bird in the hand is better than 12 birds in the bush. Now, man, I had never heard that before, but it made sense. She said, so get yourself up, go put that money to hold your spot at Fisk, and we're going to send you to Nashville. And that was the best decision of my life. Ended up becoming freshman class president, worked on the campaign for Miss Fisk University, who was my girlfriend at the time. She became Miss Fisk University. We were eventually married in the Fisk Chapel. I ended up becoming student body president at the institution, and our son attends Fisk University today. Now, from that launching pad, I entered my career as an admissions officer. Man, they were literally willing to pay me to go around the country to talk about a place that I love. I'm in. And I was able to do that well. And by the first 3 years, I increased admissions in my territory by 90%. They asked me to come on board as director of admissions, making me the youngest director of admissions the institution had ever had. We increased freshman enrollment by 20% by the time that I had left. And my relationship with that school has been one that I loved ever since. In fact, the university has come back years later as vice president of enrollment. I served there. We improved enrollment again, grew it by over 13%. And then I went on to help some other institutions. So it's a place that I have loved and endured. My wife's sister followed her to Fisk. I had three first cousins, that's like brothers and sisters, that came right after me to that place. And been blessed to have others that I've been have guided in that direction. And so needless to say, this picture behind me, the Fisk Jubilee Singers, and that legacy is a part of my life. We bleed blue and gold for real.
That's awesome. Again, you listen to the Stay True podcast, been brought to you by True Beast Coaching, where triumph requires unlimited effort. We have Mr. Anthony Jones with us today. Brother Jones, as I like to call you as well. How did you overcome the stigma? And then to develop that drive, because from going from that to have Morehouse as an option as well. And as we know about Morehouse, we know about Fisk. Tell me how you did that, man, how you turned that around and how you became a potential, Fisk graduate and then go on to do these outstanding things.
Well, it's an amazing testimony, because what I did not mention is that when I graduated from Fisk, I graduated third in my class, summa cum laude, and Phi Beta Kappa. So it was a turnaround. It was a 180 degree. But listen, let's look at what I had in my favor. Number one, I had a very supportive family. I was able to grow up with a mother and father who set high expectations for my brother and me. Now, they didn't stay together. We weren't the perfect nucleus family. But nevertheless, they did not drop their standard. And they held a model in front of us of what hard work and progress can do for an individual. I never saw a day that my mother didn't get up and go to work. I never saw a day that my daddy didn't get up and go to work. Even in their entrepreneurial pursuits, when the business was down, they were still out there beating the bushes, doing what they needed to do in order to ensure that our family was able to not just survive, but to thrive. Well, that was a huge example to me of what it meant to push ahead. That's number one. Number two, again, these were not college educated people. So it wasn't every day that they could sit down to the table with me when I was doing that homework and ensure that everything was right. But what they could do was be insistent that it get done, right? And they could stay in tune and stay involved with the school system, asking the questions, going to the parent-teacher conference. They did these kinds of things. And that allowed me to know that school, at least to them, was something that was going to be very important to them. The other piece, though, is as I said, I applaud my educators. I was fortunate to come up at a time where the school system had Black teachers infused throughout it, many of whom had gone to HBCUs and were committed to this idea of education among Black people. And so they were imparting in me. I couldn't, you couldn't slide too far to the right or too far to the left, because the teacher in whose class you weren't even in would be calling up your mama and saying, "Did you know?" kind of thing, right? And that was very new. That was that village, that nucleus that added to that. But there was one final component that was very critical for me. Well, actually two, I'm sorry. I was able to have in the 7th grade a group of friends that I became intimate with. And that friendship has lasted literally until this day. 5 guys that I was blessed to walk with who had similar intentions as I did, which was to stay out of trouble as trouble would have it, keep on doing what was necessary to be good guys. So I didn't have that peer pressure, if you will, from the outside to try to go in a different direction, because again, that nucleus was tight around me with these 5 guys who were from families that were similar to mine, that were on a trajectory of progress and progress and prosperity for the Black community. And so that was a very critical key too. And I will tell you that my mother and my father, that they were very vigilant about who those friends were that surrounded me. And they challenged me if I was going to think about going outside of that circle from the right or to the left. So that kept me focused. That was a huge blessing. But the final piece was my church. See, I grew up in a United Methodist church, Calvary United Methodist Church. I mention that because this church, my family was one of the first families to help to begin the church in 1867. So we were very rooted in that church. But here's the piece that was so critical for me. When you are in school and you're in the classroom and you're having those challenges and your grades are not as high as they could be, and sometimes that has a demeaning effect on a young person, having an outlet, a place that you can go where you can still get that applause to say, you're good, you can do it. Boy, that's beautiful. That's a critical piece. And so that's what that church was for me. I was that kid who could read the Sunday school part and get the applause from the old folk that say, boy, that was beautiful. I was that kid that was in the Christmas play and the Easter play with my poem that I had to read, or my sentence as one of the wise men. We have seen the star in the east, right? That was who I was. And every time that I stood up in front of that congregation, I was getting the applause. I was getting the affirmations that balanced out the negativity that I was experiencing as I was having my challenges with my grades, until eventually I became convinced that I was a good kid. I became convinced that I was a good student. I became convinced that I was bright. And just like I started to acclimate to that negative attitude or that negative sentence that I had in 3rd grade, I started to now acclimate to the positive sentencing that these people surrounding me in that church and in my family were giving me. And so that really was that was the mindset that all of that surrounded me. And that was then the condition and mindset that I had when I arrived on the campus of Fisk University. So it wasn't a question as to whether I was going to graduate. It was just a matter of when and how. And so I was packed, my soul was packed with those affirmations, those positive affirmations that I am a person that can succeed. I'm a person that can do it. And I will just tell you that from a personal practice standpoint, that I now know that I need to always share compliments with our young people. I need to always challenge our young people. I need to be that one that's applauding them. I was just talking to a personal friend just the other day, and they were telling me about some of the challenges that their daughter is experiencing in school. And what I said to them is I said, look, if that's the case, you have got to purposefully and intentionally find a place for her to plug in where she gets affirmation. As she turns this thing around in school and walks through this difficult place, you have got to find some place where she gets off that pole vault or off that soccer field or off that, whatever that might be, that after school program where somebody is saying good job, so that she can have that balance. So that was how I was able to persist. And of course, there's always the question of hard work, Lamont. I had to put it in. I had to always find myself doing more than the next guy, next gal. I had to stay up longer in studying. My schedule when I was in college was that I would get out of class, I would study from 5 to 9, eat in the caf, get back on it, and then the next day the same thing. On the weekends, I studied from generally 9 in the morning to about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and I took my Saturday nights off. I did the same thing on Sunday, took my Sunday evenings off, spent it with my lady. So I had that routine, and eventually it all paid off.
That's awesome. Again, you listen to the Stay True podcast. We're brought to you by T.R.U.E Coaching, where triumph requires unlimited effort. We have Mr. Anthony Jones. Brother Jones, I'm curious. It's a couple different things. So I'm curious. Your friends that you mentioned in the 7th grade, like what are they doing now?
Yes. These guys, I tell you, I'm so proud of them. All of them have done well with their lives. One has served our country for a number of years in the military, went overseas, was stationed in different places, military installations for the United States across overseas, went to an HBCU himself. He now is a director of human resources for a hospital system now down in Georgia. Another one of these guys went off to Southern University there in Baton Rouge and has been in the tech industry for a number of years now, still serving there today. Another gentleman schooled locally and walked into the environmental services area. So this guy, when you see these major spills that are happening around the country, he's one of these project managers that goes in and manages those conditions around that. And then another gentleman is just one of those hard workers. He works for the UPS organization. So he may be one of those guys that's knocking on your door with those packages and just one of these hardcore providers, if you will. So it's a dynamic group. I said 5, I'm the 5th of that group. And we've just been blessed to all continue to just walk this road with each other. And it hasn't always been easy. I mean, we've watched each other go through some very difficult and challenging times in each other's lives. We have also had to challenge one another at times. We've had to be very realistic with one another about some things. We even had some challenges amongst ourselves in our relationships, but we've always managed to bounce back from that and maintain this. And I cannot tell you how critical those deposits have been that have been made in me by these gentlemen. I've remembered times when I've been in some of my most darkest moments, maybe professionally, and one of our funnier moments would come to mind. And I'll just laugh about that. A joke that one of them made, or a face that one of them might make at that moment. And I'd imagine them saying something, and it just really brings me back to life. And I think that is one of the most valuable things of that relationship, is the fact that we have given one another of ourselves, the best of ourselves, to be able to carry with ourselves in those moments when we need them.
One of the things that I like about what you just said is it confirms the statement about iron sharpening iron. But not only did you show the example of that, you showed why it's important. You showed the result of true iron sharpening iron, which I really appreciate, because it was important for me to understand, like, the people who are closer to you. You can always tell a lot about the people who are close to you by the person you're talking to. So it's important. It's very important for people to understand that it's very important who you have in your 6-inch space, which is very important.
And if I may just add to that, another important aspect of this relationship that I've had with these men is there was relatively no competition.
That's
what I mean by that is that it's never been a condition with us that if one gets this type of job, or one buys this type of car, or one lives in this type of house, that the other feels like, oh, it's now my time, that I've got to best that, right? I've got to do better than that. And I got to be honest to say that has been a real benefit of being with the kind of men that have the kind of character that they carry. And that's an important key, because I think if we would have had a hard competitive line that ran through our relationship, I don't think that we would have been able to walk this thing out 30 plus years. I just think it would have just been too difficult to try and be in each other's presence. But instead of that, what we have had is remember I use that word challenge, and we have challenged one another to say, hey man, are you doing your best in this situation? Hey man, did you treat this woman the best way that you could have treated her? Hey man, or, I know you feel this way about your employer, but have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Or you're about to make this critical decision for your family about leaving this job or whatever, but have you thought about what the impact's going to be on your wife or that kind of thing? So it's not as if we've not, again, been in each other's face to do exactly what you said, to sharpen one another, but we've taken out that tension of competition that resides with that. And whether one of us serves as a leader in an organization or one of us serves as a frontline person, that really doesn't matter. What really matters is are we walking this road of commitment to yourself, commitment to your family, commitment to God, commitment to those things that are right about your community, and commitment to others and so forth. So those are the things that I really cherish the most about that relationship.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And before I jump in, because I really want to know about about Howard a little bit, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to know, you talked about the applause. How do you, metaphorically, what is and how you find your applause now at this point in your life?
Well, at this point in my life, it is very, very important to me to know that I'm walking in the will of God. I take every job now as an assignment, a kingdom assignment. And therefore, I understand that life is but a breath of vapor. When you think about it compared to eternity, it is like I often give the example of taking a crayon and going all the way around a room, just one long line all the way around a room, and then coming back to that line and taking the nail from your pinky finger and just scratching a perpendicular line into that horizontal line. That little scratch is our lifespan compared to eternity. And so we're only here for a breath, but what we do in that breath is going to impact the rest of our eternity. And so I'm very focused, Lamont, very, very focused on ensuring that I can accomplish whatever I was sent into this earth to do in this brief period of time that I have it, so that it moves the kingdom of God forward. And so that when I arrive on that other side, I can hear God say, servant of God, well done. Now, with that said, I know therefore that I have to walk through some very difficult times, some very challenging situations in order to establish that kingdom in the earth realm. Never in the Bible have we ever seen examples of anyone that was walking out their kingdom assignment where it was easy. You had examples of men and women that had to go through from battles to prison to losing their very lives. And so I understand that. So the way that I find my applause is knowing that God is pleased, walking through this thing in a way where I'm knowing that God is pleased. And he sends me those winks every now and then to let me know that I'm doing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing, whether it's opening up a door or making a process, giving me grace to go through a process. There are these affirmations that he gives me along the way to let me know that I am pleased. But the other thing that he does is he surrounds me. I've been blessed to be surrounded by individuals that he uses to give me that applause. Like my beautiful wife we've been together over 30 years. She is an individual who God graces, who has graced my life, who tells me that, you know what, you're doing all right, AJ. He gives me beautiful kids that I'm thankful that they look up to me. And that is a manner of applause. He's blessed me to still have my parents who still treat me like I am that little 12-year-old that's reading my part in church, because they are just, oh, they're my baby doing well, that kind of thing. So that's all wonderful. And of course, friends and other family members who applaud the success that I've been able to have. Now, I will tell you, I'll be very honest. This is important for me because it is not all the time that you're going to be in organizations where the organization has the character enough to be able to applaud you. Many people go into organizations wanting to get affirmation from the organization, but you must remember that our relationship with our organizations is transactional. It is, I give you hours, you give me money. I give you effort, you give me a salary. I give you results, you give me promotion. That's what the relationship is. So we're blessed if we get affirmation in an organization. And sometimes you run up on a manager or a culture that does that, but that shouldn't be the leading expectation. If you have the opportunity yourself to give it, because it's always good to be able to sow those kinds of things into other people and you'll receive it back. But be very crystal clear and clear-minded about what is the expectation of that organization. And it is not to affirm you, it is transactional, it is to pay you. And so I lean on these other things in order to get that applause today.
I love that. I love that. You know, I don't want to jump too much into Howard. Only thing I want to really say to you, I want to applaud you guys for bringing on Miss Felicia Rashad as I want to tell me what that means to Howard.
Well, it is absolutely huge. What a find! What a gem! What an event this is! Not just for Howard, but really for the HBCU community itself, right? To have someone of her notoriety, her credibility, her legacy to come home and pour back into that institution speaks volumes for the importance of Black education. And I'm certainly excited on a personal note. My daughter is a Howard student, majoring in musical theater. She's very good at what she does. So she will be in that College of Fine Arts with Dean Rashad. And so I'm very excited for her because this obviously opens up doors. But listen, but this speaks to a greater shift that's happening right now amongst the HBCU environment, right? What is the rest of the world is becoming woke to what we've already known. Right? We understand that we have provided an affirming environment that has produced results where young people have come into our HBCU communities who were underprepared in their high school experience, perhaps, and they have been prepared there and have gone on to be successful in that middle and upper class, right? And for those who have come to the HBCU environments prepared, they've been challenged, they've been honed, they've been given the kinds of professional skills that they need to go out and be able not just to survive, but to thrive in the larger world. So the HBCU environment has been unique and it always has had results. Now the larger world is shifting to understand more about that because we're now more on the national stage than what we've ever been before. Now, I'm not suggesting that Dean Rashad's choice to come back to Howard had to do with this shift in phenomenon. In fact, I would suspect that this has been a relationship and a conversation that's been happening for quite some time. But I think that the timing of it is just one more key in the cog that shows that HBCUs are relevant. We are relevant and we produce, and we are an essential key to the prosperity and the leadership of this nation around the world. You have to have people of color educated in mass and doing well so that the innovative ideas in them can be brought to the table that creates newer products and newer opportunities so that capital can be raised on top of that and the nation's economy can thrive and we can have more resources for greater lifestyles for people that are both at the top as well as on the bottom. In this country. So it is imperative that HBCUs do well. And I think that getting her kind of talent into Howard is one more step in that positive direction.
I think that's awesome. And just for a special favor, can you get her to do an Alpha AK hop with me on the yard? That's all I need. I want to attend no class. I just want to hop with
I wish I had that kind of pull, my friend. I will put it on the radar, but I can make no promises on that.
All right, at least you're gonna try for me. Thank you, brother. Now, I want to shift a little bit, Brother Jones. So we both care about our people. All right. Yes. I want you to finish this statement. We as a people must.
I have a few thoughts about that, Brother Lamont. Number one, we as a people must get vaccinated. We as a people must get vaccinated. I am pulling no bones about that. I am not shy about my feelings about that. And here's why. It is not just a question of health. It's a question of economics. Bottom line, it's not a question of health. It's a question of economics. This economy will bounce back from this pandemic. Jobs will come back again. people are going to start spending money again, and this economy is going to jumpstart and move on. It is a fact, and it will not be a phenomenon. It is a true fact. It's just a matter of when. The people who are vaccinated, regardless of race, are those that are going to be able to participate more fully in that rebounding economy. Those who are not are going to have a greater challenge. If we as a people are not vaccinated at a high degree, we are going to find ourselves in a different type of discrimination when it comes to employment. Now, legally, employers cannot require anyone to be vaccinated, but you better believe that culture will always trump the rules. Culture will always be stronger than any policy that you can put in place. You can say a policy, you can outline it, but if the people that you're working with operate in with a certain value system that feeds that culture, that is what is going to win. And organizations will have cultures that value vaccination, and people who are not vaccinated will be those that will have to face the consequences of what that culture will bring. And if they're ready for the fight, fine, but it will be a fight. And so many of our people will find themselves being passed over, being under promoted. The jobs just the opportunities just may not be there. So I am thinking that it is a health question. We do need to be healthy. I understand that just about 27% of the African American population in the country today has a vaccine. But we also need to look at this from an economic standpoint and think about the viability and long-term viability of our community going forward. So that would be my first response to that question. I think that our people need to be vaccinated.
Now, Edison says that genius is 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. How does that relate to us as a people?
You know, our people have never been afraid of hard work. I mean, we built this nation, certainly the foundation of it. And so I never despair when it comes to expect that our people are going to put in the effort. It is just a natural inclination of who we are. This idea about people of color, Black people being lazy, that's something that was cooked up in the mind of some media person and stuck 50, 60 years ago when it got plugged into the larger media discourse. But that has never been the truth. And we've dispelled that rumor time and time again in who we are and how we show up and what it is that we do. Unfortunately, there have been some of us who've succumbed to that idea, but it's not because they cannot do it or it's not in them. It's only because they fed into the rhetoric. If they were to simply look inside and look around them, they would realize that they come from a people that was supposed to be snuffed out over 200 years ago, or rather over 100 years ago, when we talk about the end of the Civil War, right? But we were not, and we will not. And so I don't at all ever expect that our people will not be able to press, because we will press and we always rise up and do what it is that we need to do. I think that the inspiration, though, I think is the piece that really, for me, pertains to opportunity. We really do have to be very mindful of creating more opportunities for ourselves when it comes to the future of our community, right? And I think that's really what we ought to be inspiring to do, is to always be creating more jobs, always be creating more products, always be creating more scientific breakthroughs, always be creating more stories about ourselves and and driving the narrative. Always be looking to be on the cutting edge of where the latest in technology is. That is what that is what should inspire us, is that we should be trying to create opportunity for others, for not only ourselves, but others to come behind us and take advantage of that. That's one of the reasons why I'm so adamant about the higher education work that I do, particularly at HBCUs. I clearly see it as as a chance to create opportunities for others to come behind my work and have access to a higher level, right? And so I think that's what we ought to get inspired, is how can I create other opportunities for other people? And it doesn't always have to be that you have to launch a company. It could be right there in your place of employment where you are, being stellar, being excellent, working diligently, recommending others, coaching other Black folk letting them know where, how they should apply in the company and when they should apply in the company, how to hold themselves in that organization so that they are viewed in a way that gives them other opportunities and a door to open up, right? It could be in a number of different ways, but that is what we ought to be. That's what should inspire us, is creating opportunities for ourselves and for one another. And when opportunity meets the tenacity that we have as a people, when those two collide, that's when our community continues to grow and becomes more strong and becomes more healthy, and we continue to perpetuate ourselves for generations to come.
This is good, Brother Jones. So what came to mind as you were speaking, Maya Angelou's, Cage Bird came.
Yes.
And so if you could, a lot of our people are caged physically, mentally. How can that caged bird still sing?
Great question. Let's acknowledge the fact that too large a percentage of our people right now are languishing in communities that are deteriorating around them. From governmental policies, federal, state, and local governmental policies, to unjust laws and the application of just laws, the unfair application of just laws, to underfunded school systems, with too large of classrooms, not enough opportunities for things like AP and IB classes, and then just the lack of employment that some communities have, as well as the underfunding of capital for the growing of businesses. These are realities that are surrounding us as Black people that we face every day. Now, that doesn't even include some of the more subliminal issues like microaggressions that we face in society and in the workplace and in the education systems and so forth, right? So this is a real fight. This is a real fight. So the question is, what has been true about those who have been able to rise up and rise out, right? Those that have been able to really pick themselves up and be able to raise themselves to a new level, right? I think that one of those things is I cannot ignore the impact of, as I mentioned earlier in my own case, the larger community, and how it is so critical that we support one another, that we get in one another's spaces and be able to close gaps for one another and look out for the betterment of that neighbor that's next to us, their kid, as they're looking out for our kid and their next opportunity and so forth. That's the community that I was blessed to grow up in. And I know the effects of it can work. And when it's done right, it can work. And we have to empower communities to support one another in that way. We have to give communities the tools that they need to gather around one another and do that. We need to invest in community centers. We need to invest in nonprofit organizations that are serving those communities and bringing young people together. We have to invest in organizations that are supporting single moms and trying to help them as they are trying to better themselves. We need to invest in organizations that are about community reinvestment. Credit unions, Black banks. We need to be about those components of the community that are fundamental to trying to help people be concerned about that community. So the community piece is certainly something that is very key. But at the same time, though, I'm also one that has a less popular view, perhaps, that's owned by some of us in the Black community. And that is, I do believe that there is something to be said about individualism. I think that we are a communal folk. We will always be a communal folk. That is never going anywhere. But at some point, not everybody can walk along with you for where you need to go, because there's some things that you can only do for yourself, if you understand where I'm coming from. And there's just some times that you got to make a decision, a personal decision, that regardless of what mama say, daddy say, sister say, cousin say, I'm about to do this. And regardless of what it takes, I'm going to invest this. Yes, I'm going to face some difficulties. Yes, I'm going to face some isms. Yes, I'm going to face some walls and some challenges. But regardless of what it takes, I'm about to get up out of this situation and improve myself. That is an individual point of view. And that is one that says that regardless if you come in or not, regardless if you buy into that old mindset or not, I can't do this anymore. I've got to do what I need to do for myself so that my children and my children's children can have a better opportunity for them down the road, right? And we dog out this individual idea so much because we feel like if I'm looking out for self, I'm forgetting about the larger community. That's not how I see it. I say if you at some point have to do what you need to do for yourself, you are better for your larger community, right? You put yourself in a greater position in order to do more with that larger community. And then finally, for me, it has been and will always be about faith. My faith is a key component of who I am. It is soulish. It is soul. It is central rather to my soul. That I be in a place with God through Jesus Christ that gives me access to these greater resources of the kingdom of God that help me to get to the places that I need to be. Because, brother, at some point, you just need favor. Come on, you need favor. You need something that's more super than your natural to get you past some things and some barriers that other people would try to place in your way. Yes, you've got the community. Yes, you've got the stick-to-itiveness. You got the dogmatic nature that you need. Those are both fine. But sometimes at some point you might hit a door that you just can't open by yourself. And you need a supernatural work on your behalf to depend upon to open up that door for you to move past all of the isms that you're going to face and get you to the place that God has designed and God has ordained for you. And that has been true in my own life. I can't ignore that. It's been a very important key for me. I've got some things happening right now that's a part that folds back into exactly what I'm talking about. So again, these are the three pieces: the community, that individualism, and faith are where I think our people need to examine and embrace. And that I think is going to be better for all of us.
That was awesome. Now, a little bit lighthearted question. I'm going to describe a few shapes. All right. Now, you tell me which one fit you and your mission. Now, I'm circle, square, triangle, and because you're an intellectual, octagon, hexagon. So, which one fit you and the mission that is Anthony Jones?
Oh, wow. That's a great one. I'm going to take the safe road here and go with the circle. I shouldn't say a safe road. I think it's the truest road for me. And I say the circle because it really, interestingly, just last night, my family and we watched this comical animated movie about a young woman who's trying to leave for college and gets stuck in this war against some robot aliens. It was very funny. But as I was watching the movie, I was reflecting about on those moments when I was packing up my bags, about loading up the car, about to be driven by my two uncles up to Fisk University out of, leaving South Louisiana and going up north for the first time, if you will. And just thinking about that just brought back such great memories for me in those few moments that I was doing that. But what I also concluded in that was, you know what? This thing has really been a journey about getting back home, right? Because every place that I've ever been in my career, I've always been conscious about doing what I'm doing for the betterment of my community back there in Louisiana. And I have sown in that community. I have recruited young people from that community to give them opportunities. I have done some philanthropic work in that community out of the work that my wife and I, the philanthropic work that she and I do. I have supported different efforts, political efforts and others in that community. So it's never been far away from me. And so I do feel like that it's really been a circle. And at some point, who knows, maybe that's where they'll lay these old bones back in that that old family grave plot there in that community back in Louisiana. So it really has been kind of rounding the curve. I still have a lot to do. So we'll see how the rest of the story goes. But I think that circle would be the one that would fit me the most. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, as we close, I give my guests the floor, but in the spirit of the Jubilee singers, that picture that's behind you there,
yes,
give
sir.
the people some reason to celebrate. All right, I want you to close us out. The floor is yours, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I don't know that there has been more opportunity for us as a people, as a Black people, than where we stand right now. I know that we have a lot facing us, and the realities are what they are. But as it has been said, we have enough strong people to do this. We have more technology than we've ever had. We've had more access to things like healthcare and education and money than we've ever had before. We may not have all of it that we want, or maybe even in some cases all that we need, but we've got more than what our grandparents had, and we certainly have more than what our great-grandparents had before them. So there is a platform off of which we can launch our community, and we can make impact. And we need to take advantage of this moment, this hour, and we need to press. We need to press in. Let's get rid of any excuses that we might have. Let's lay them aside. We know what the challenges are. We don't have to rehearse those. But we also have seen examples where people have overcome those challenges and have made a better world for themselves and for others. And that really is my message today. Let's go and do what it is that we as a people know how to do. Let's build, and let's create something that's great for today for our people. And let's create something that's going to be dynamic and lasting for our people for tomorrow.
Man, that was good. I didn't eat one morsel of food, but I feel like I'm full right now, Brother Jones. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you, brother. Honest to God. So again, you've been listening to Stay True Podcast, being brought to you by True Beast Coaching, where triumph requires unlimited effort. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Thank you so much. I'm sure the people are full just as I am.
Thank you. It's been an absolute privilege to be on the podcast. Truly, truly, I thank you for thinking about me, and hopefully you'll have me back again.
Oh yeah, that's without a doubt. We're going to do this again. Again, Stay True Podcast. Remember always, triumph requires unlimited effort.